Planet of the Apes. It's a fantastic movie. It came out in 1968. Then it's a perfect movie. 10 out of 10. That twist ending, which everybody knows, is amazing. It's got iconic lines. And Charlton Heston gives an amazing performance as this human that gets transported to this planet where they have talking apes. And it's like, what is going on? And Planet of the Apes is amazing. The sequel, Beneath Planet of the Apes, was just okay. And Charlton Heston is there for a couple minutes and then disappears, and then you follow Brent, and he's no Charlton Heston, but the ending with the atomic bomb is like, oh. Then the next two sequels were very good. You got Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where Cornelius and Zira go back in time to Earth in the modern day, Earth of the 70s, and people are like, oh my gosh, these are talking apes. These are super advanced chimpanzees that can talk, and we have to stop this before they take over the world. Then you have Conquest for the Planet of the Apes, and that is about their offspring, Caesar, and he's one of these guys that in the future, I believe it takes place in the 1990s, where there's a plague and it kills the dogs and it kills the cats, and humans need pets. So they decide, how about let's have apes as pets? And it starts off great until they realize, you know, apes can do more than a dog and a cat can do. Apes can set the table. Apes can go grocery shopping. Apes can do a lot more. And they realize this and they start taking advantage of this. And then Caesar is mad, and Caesar says no. And then this leads to him starting a rebellion, and this is how the apes get control of the planet. And then Battle is unwatchable. They had 2 TV shows, which haven't seen in a long time, and I've only seen a couple episodes of, and that's not that great. And then Tim Burton rebooted this in 2001, and that was dreadful. I talked a little bit of the show about a month ago about how awful that is. And then Planet of the Apes, they rebooted it in 2011 with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And this film could have been the end of the franchise. I thought the franchise was already dead after Tim Burton. But this film surprised the heck out of me. And it's directed by Rupert Wyatt. It's got James Franco, John Lithgow, Andy Serkis. And it is very similar to 1972's Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, but it's a reboot, it's a remake. They're changing up the mythology a bit. Instead of plagues that kill dogs and cats and apes become pets, it's about animal experimentation, it's about genetic engineering, and it's about creating a cure or a vaccine for Alzheimer's. And it works, but it has side effects where it makes humans sick, and it makes the animals that they tested on more intelligent. And the highlight of this film, and the highlight of all 3 of the rebooted Planet of the Apes films, has to be Andy Serkis. Can I say Oscar for Andy, anyone? He is so incredible, not just in this as Gollum, as King Kong, and I believe that motion capture, you look at what they did in the Apes films, you look like what it did in Avatar. This is the way to do CGI creatures, and in the modern times where there are more and more effects-driven films, there's only a few that come out every year, but Andy Serkis needs to get an Oscar. They're probably going to end up giving him a Lifetime Achievement Oscar, but also he could get a Best Director Oscar. There's a film I am very much looking forward to that is in limited release now, and it gets a wide release later in the year, and it's Breathe. It's got Andrew Garfield. He's a polio patient. And then next year there's Jungle Book, which he directed, and he plays Baloo. And that was supposed to come out in 2016, but Disney made a Jungle Book movie that beat him to a punch, and then they pushed it back, And he's saying it's because they need more time to work on the visual effects, but my personal belief is they are just trying to distance themselves from the Disney version. So, Rise of the Planet of the Apes has an incredible performance by Andy Serkis that plays Caesar through different periods of his life, and it uses the Planet of the Apes canon and mixes it up to create new canon, and this surprised the crap out of me. This is such a well done film. Every second is perfect. I love the story of Caesar. You look at Caesar from an infant into his young adulthood, and I absolutely love this film. It ends on the masked Golden Gate Bridge. There's a great scene, and it leaves me wanting more to a franchise which I did not need. And you look at where this could have gone. It goes from Rise to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and this is about the ape society. Matt Reeves took over in the director's chair, and this film is just about this rise of the ape society. And you have this dissension in the ranks, where you have Caesar thinks one thing, Koba thinks another. You have these humans that need power, and the power plant is right next to where the apes build their village. And the dissension in the ranks with Koba and the trickery that Koba does isn't just the best villain in the entire franchise. He is one of the greatest villains of all time. He's probably one of my top 5 villains of all time. And it's just about these two factions, well, 3 if you count the humans, and their different way of thinking, their different way of believing, differences in the society. And this is a movie about apes, and you're rooting for the apes, you're rooting against the humans, and Caesar, you love Caesar, and he is such a good leader. But he is not feared, and Koba believes you get into a lot of these Machiavellian politics. And about Koba's like, I can do better than him. So it creates an ape civil war. And then in the end, Koba bites the dust. This leads into War of the Planet of the Apes. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes had the impossible task of following up Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And it didn't just meet expectations, it surpassed expectations, and it raised the bar. The problem with this is, did the bar get raised too high? War for the Planet of the Apes, although being a good film, it has what I called the return of the Jedi effect, where Star Wars in 1977 is a perfect film. It's a 10 out of 10. Empire Strikes Back raised the bar. If there was an 11, it would get an 11, but there's not. 10 out of 10. Then you have Return of the Jedi. It has great moments. You look at the Jabba the Palace scene. I love that. You got the Hoth. That was the other. You got when he some great scenes. You got the Emperor and Vader on the Death Star. You got some great scenes. You got the Battle of Endor. But then you also have Ewoks. You also have the reveal that Luke and Leia are sisters, are siblings, and you're like, what is going on? And there is stuff here that takes Return of the Jedi a whole step down from the first two. And I believe that's what happened to War of the Planet of the Apes. It did not help that the trailers marketed a different movie. It did not help the name was War for the Planet of the Apes. It's about Caesar after a huge tragedy, and he's like, okay, what I've been doing does not work. It is about Caesar with his PTSD after killing Koba, and the whole ape society is going, he has to realize ape shall not kill ape, and he has to deal with the outcomes of him committing murder against Koba. The murder was justified because Koba was crazy, but he still murdered, and he still, I am no worse than the humans. And there is a lot of great stuff in this, but the movie was marketed as the all-out war between the humans and the apes. The last film's like, I do not want war, war has already begun, and this film is called War for the Planet of the Apes. This film, although good, is not great, and I had high expectations that were raised because of the marketing. I thought I was getting one movie, I was getting a completely different movie. I ended up with a revenge western, biblical epic, and I love westerns. I love the western elements in this movie, and I love Ten Commandments, and I love the biblical epic things of this movie. But my expectations were so high for War of the Planet of the Apes that although I enjoyed the film, I did not love the film, and this trilogy could have been the perfect trilogy. This trilogy could have been better than Toy Story. Blasphemy. And Chapter 1 was amazing. Chapter 2 was amazing. Chapter 3 was good. I don't hate War of the Planet of the Apes. I just don't absolutely love Planet of the Apes. I don't hate Return of the Jedi. It's just, it's not as good as the first two movies. And if I had to rate War for the Planet of the Apes, it would get a solid 7 out of 10. I will watch it again. I just won't buy it on Blu-ray, won't buy it on 4K, at least not for a while until I can forget about these expectations and in a couple of years, 5 years down the line, watch it for what it truly is, and I might appreciate it more. So thank you so much for being with me this hour. Please follow me on Twitter. It's Justin's a Critic. And if you ever have any specific topics you want me to talk about, just tweet me, and I will most likely talk about that. If people start tweeting me, I will start talking about what you want to hear. So thank you so much for listening.